Hi everyone, my name's Tom Holmes. I'm founding director of Varan Performance, leading digital transformation program, and today I'm talking on Oracle's series of how-to guides, and I want to talk about business cases, and I want to talk about the effect of inflation and interest rates on those business cases, which actually, so good news is, it's very detrimental to everything else, but to our ERP business cases, it is fundamentally useful, helpful, and illustrates the value of the investment in a whole different way. So the two changes which have occurred over the last year is that we're seeing a resurgence of both inflation and likely increases to interest rates over the next few years. When we add that effect, and let's say 3% for each or 5% for each, we're talking about a really significant effect on the value of long-term service improvements, long-term cost improvements to our business case. So our investment in Oracle, our ability to move to a new Oracle solution, generates these kind of benefits. But frankly, until this year, until we started looking at interest rates and inflation occurring, those values have stayed static. So you save 100,000 in material costs or 100,000 in a service cost from somebody else, and that is 100,000 a year. So over a 10-year period, that's 100,000. If we apply a 5% inflation rate to either of those, that 100,000 turns into a real value of over 200,000. It doubles the benefits in the long term of the long-term improvements which Oracle transformations and Oracle technology refreshes generate. So it's really exciting. I mean, it sounds like the most boring topic ever, but actually it's really exciting to our business cases. So I thought I'd dwell a little bit on actually the related history between ERP and inflation, because the other thing which made me think when I was looking at how much this has transformed our business cases for Oracle, the thing which made me think was how this was always the case. So if we go back to the 70s and 80s when Oracle was created, and when the main thrust was not actually ERP but MRP, manufacturing resource planning, that technology was born out of high inflationary, high interest rate times. It was at times when in our supply chain, if we had £1 million worth of steel sitting somewhere and we left it there for a year and weren't efficient at using it, we'd lose 10% of its value. And we're going back to those kind of times. And guess what? It's having the same effect on the improvements which we can generate now, not so much in our materials management solutions and supply chain, but more about our people value, our ability to create greater productivity, our ability to really digitally transform our back offices and make them stronger, more efficient and more effective. So I've got kind of 5 tips to talk about as to how to make sure that we reflect this in our business cases. And the first of them is pretty obvious actually, which is to go back to add those 2 boxes top right of all of our business case spreadsheets. We used to have them in there, but we've hardly used them for the last 10 years. Since 2008, inflation and interest rates have been so low that actually the 2 figures, inflation and interest, the top right, which compounds the benefits of all of our savings in our business cases, have been set at 0. So we've got to reinvigorate them, use them again, make sure we've got them in our spreadsheets and that we are compounding the value of benefits as time goes on. The second part, another trick kind of thing, but it's also a very handy tip for this, and that is to make sure that we're talking about a reasonable period of time. Oracle solutions last between 5, 10, 15 years before we need to renew them. Now we're moving to the cloud, it's a permanent move. So therefore we should be looking at our benefits over a longer period of time. 5-year business cases is a minimum, maybe even pushing into looking at what the view is over an 8 or 10-year period. And because of the inflationary effect and the interest rate effect, that has a really positive effect on those outcomes, and ones which are our C-suite team are really interested in. They're not interested in short-term savings anymore. It's long-term savings which we're all interested in. The next part is including the full service costs of our back office teams. It's making sure that we aren't talking simply about the cost of the technology and the support of the technology, but also we're talking about and including in our business case all of the service costs. We used to do this, but we've kind of stopped doing this in recent years. And it's really important to make sure that you're showing that full service cost and the efficiencies and effectiveness improvements which you're expecting to see from the initial implementation, but also from the growth of that implementation over time. So because we're talking about moving to the cloud with the majority of these business cases, we're expecting that cloud solution to improve and drive additional efficiencies throughout its lifetime. Adding those into our business cases also have a big effect. So the lesson is simply that we need to look at a longer time period and include all of those services in that in our business cases. And that's it. I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon, so I think we need to take advantage of it. And I think it actually reflects better the kind of value which Oracle and ERP solutions like Oracle bring. And it's critical that we reflect it, because otherwise we're not expressing the full value of our Oracle digital transformations and of our programs which we are proposing. So with that, I'd like to close our first how-to guide on business cases. I hope it was short enough and sweet enough to keep you interested in the topics of inflation and interest rates. So good luck with your cases, and hopefully I'll see you again on one of these webinars sometime soon. So thank you very much.